Yeah, we're good.
Good to go. All right. So everyone, welcome back to Real Life Bowling Podcast number 7. Thank you guys for supporting. Yeah, number 7. We're doing this quick. Yeah, we've got another special guest with us. If you guys tuned in last week, you already know this guy. He's a very good friend of Mike Moore. His name is Shawn Naumann. Easily one of the most talented guys in the state of Florida, and by far one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet. So we're very, very happy to have him on here. Incredibly intelligent guy, and this should be a really good conversation. I'm looking forward to seeing how long we can make this go for.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here, man. I've listened to all the podcasts so far. I actually listen to them when I work out most of the time. It's just better than music at times. It's just something to listen to, and it keeps me engaged. I like where you guys are going with everything. I like that it's different than any of the other bowling podcasts I listen to. So you guys keep it up, man. I'm really excited to hear more.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
Thanks, man. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Shawn Naumann. I've pretty much been bowling my whole life, even though it hasn't quite gone that way. At times I didn't bowl. I basically grew up bowling. For the little bit I remember, I was born in Wyoming, and in the winter when it's below freezing, 30, 40, 50 below, you were inside bowling. And then the bowling alleys would literally shut down during the summer months because nobody wanted to be inside, which was like 4 or 5 months out of the year. So I basically grew up bowling and golfing, moved down to Florida, and I loved both of them for different reasons. I kept bowling as much as I could. I wanted to get better, but I didn't know anything at the time. I didn't know anything about sport patterns. I didn't know anything about any of the youth stuff going on. I just tried to bowl as much as I could. I actually got into high school. I kind of took some time away from bowling. I wasn't really interested in it as much as the competitive part. I actually ended up golfing 3 years of high school. I only bowled my sophomore year, and it was basically because of getting to matches and stuff like that. The school provided a bus for us to be able to get to matches for bowling, and it didn't for golf. So otherwise, I wouldn't even golf at all during high school. I would have golfed the entire time and not bowled. But it was good. We had a good time. I bowled 1 year, and we actually ended up winning state tournament, which was really cool considering the guys on the team really didn't know each other, and we just kind of clicked. So that was really cool. We actually, I think it was all Baker at the time. I don't know what it is now. We went, I think, 22 or 23-1. And actually one of us, actually we had 2 losses. One was actually in a match, and then the other one we lost district, but we actually won state tournament. So I don't know how it really goes now. I don't know the way high school bowling goes. But that was it. And then the moment I was done with high school bowling, I didn't touch a bowling ball again for probably about 2 or 3 years. I went to UCF as the only school I applied to. I was going there strictly for education, and then I was going to try to play golf on the golf team. That was actually my goal at the time. And after my second year in college, I realized that wasn't going to happen, and it wasn't necessarily due to ability. I was still going there for an education, and the amount of time that they had off and with what I was studying, it just wasn't going to work. So I just started to take bowling more serious. I think my first year of college, I started bowling again just with my dad. He wanted to bowl league. There was a really good league that bowled at Cimarron Bowling Center, which is now closed. It was a 5-man team, and there was 20-something teams on Monday night. So he wanted to bowl with some friends of his, and he wanted to bowl with me, so I got back into it. And then once I realized golf wasn't going to happen, I took bowling more serious. I actually was bowling. I bowled Monday night league, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and 2 on Thursday at one point. So it's pretty crazy at the time. And then I actually started taking it even more seriously, and I tried out for UCF. And I bowled 2 years right before I graduated, and it was probably some of the best bowling time of my life for the aspect of team bowling strictly. It just, we don't get that in bowling these days. There's very few team tournaments, and it's not the same.
Team bowling is so rare, and it's just the best. It's when you're feeding off the guys and you're just feeding off everybody around you. It's just so good.
Absolutely. It's completely different, man. Especially in college, because we're not bowling for money. Literally, we're bowling to beat everybody out there, and you throw a shot and you have your whole team, whether who's all there or not. I think we had like 12 or 14, maybe 12 or 13 guys, and we all got to know each other real well. I still talk to quite a few of them, some more regularly than others, but throwing a shot and turning around, and that energy is completely different. So I really started taking bowling serious at that point. And when I graduated, I actually was considering, my wife now and I were actually considering me bowling all of the Southern region stuff for the PBA, because at the time there was still the exemption for being, I think as the regional players, there was an exemption.
Yeah, Player of the Year got an exemption back then.
Yeah. And at the time it was still, a 30 some odd week schedule. And as soon as I graduated that next year, I believe, or the year and a half after, it went to that World Series of Bowling. And then it was, you bowl for a month and a half and then you're off for 4 months. So at that point, I just decided to get as good as I could locally, and kind of build a name for myself. I mean, I got to a point where I was bowling every weekend. It didn't matter if it was a big tournament. It didn't matter if there was a 15-person, 150 for first tournament. I was literally bowling to get as good as I could. I didn't care so much about the money, and I still don't to an extent. And I just wanted to get as best as I could. I used to bowl. There were some big tournaments that I don't know if you guys knew about. I know Eric ran his was great, but even before Eric, there was a guy, David Yankee, locally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I used to bowl those, and at the time, I would go into it knowing that I wasn't where I needed to be, but I needed to see in the moment what made those guys better, what made JJ better, other than physically, like what does he do under this circumstance. So I bowled for probably a year and a half, getting to that point where there were times where I knew I had no chance to cash, even if I bowled my best, but I needed to bowl to get as good as I could. And that's something I don't think is around as much anymore. I grinded it out as much as I could, knowing that I might lose money at this tournament or that tournament, but the ending goal was going to be way better than that.
Yeah, absolutely. People like we've definitely discussed this. Like, people don't realize how hard it is to get to where you would feel confident in that you could win and beat those guys, because they have more experience. And with the PBA going the way it did in that time period, it was so hard to get experience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I pretty much did the same thing that you did. I just bowled all the local stuff, traveled when I could, and just got my butt kicked until I started winning. Like, there's really no other way of doing it.
No, that's something, and I actually got that, and I've become really good friends with JJ. And even back then, he would take the time to talk and stuff like that, and he sees it kind of the way I do. You literally have to go get your head beat in. I know it sucks to if you spend $80 on an entry to know that you're probably not getting that back, but the ultimate goal is to be the best, and the only way to be the best is I have to beat JJ, I have to beat Ramos, I have to beat all the guys that are around here. And if I lose a couple tournaments or willingly that I can afford to go to that tournament and not cash, even if I bowl my best, I have a very slim chance of cashing. I know that I'm going to learn every time I bowl. I'm going to get better and better. I'm going to be able to take these tools that, why is he doing that? Or why is this person doing this? Or what made them do that? And I think it's made a big part of my bowling career at this point. Is I've been there. I've had my head beat in, and now kind of get to reap the benefits of it.
No, that's absolutely right.
Yeah, we talked about that with Mike. Like, we all do this not to get rich. I mean, even if you're the best in the world, winning everything you can with endorsements, you're not going to be, rich. You'll make a good living, but you have to do this because you love it. You want to be better. You crave the competition. Like you said, you have to want to get better, even knowing, you may not make any money. This is not a sport for money. I mean, there's not a lot of sports that you would do just willingly to kind of, throw an entry fee at it. But bowling's one of those rare ones where I feel like people that bowl at 160 average or 220 average, like, they love bowling so much more than what you see like out of a typical person who might play tennis or golf or something like that. I feel like the love for bowling is a lot deeper. It's so much deeper, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, and the way I think about it is this, and I obviously went to school for education. I do have a great job that affords me to be able to do this stuff. There are parts of bowling that I look at the money, but the ultimate goal is I want to beat everybody. Like, it's, friends, no friends, it doesn't matter. I want to win when I'm there. I enjoy the competition. There is a rush you get when you need this shot, or you have to do this, or you're behind, or you're in the lead and you need to stay there. Like, there's just a feeling you get of that competition that I love. So my ultimate goal is winning whatever it is, whether it's a tournament or a PBA stop, a national stop, an Eagle. My number one goal is to win. And there is money involved, obviously expenses and entry fees and stuff like that, but I still want to win. And there's a lot of things I would give up to have certain victories. And I've said it before, which is why money is not the number one goal. I mean, one of my biggest things is I would love to win an Eagle. And I would love to win a team and a team all events more than the individual, because I think they're harder to obtain. It shows the quality of bowlers you are. And I wouldn't play a bracket again. I wouldn't play any of the pops again if I want an Eagle. Like, if I could choose to never win any side event money at that tournament, which, fortunately I've done well over the years, or we've done well over the years, I would give that up in a heartbeat to win an Eagle. To have that sitting on my shelf is worth more than the money to me.
The team all events Eagles are unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
For those of you that don't know, an Eagle is a win at the USBC National Championships every year. There's hundreds of thousands of individuals and, thousands and thousands of teams and doubles entries that bowl that event for months and months. So the odds of winning that tournament are incredibly slim, and then just how difficult it is when you get out there. You only have 9 games. You have a limited amount of bowling balls. You don't have a whole lot of practice. You have very little practice to get ready to go out and bowl the best 9 games you could possibly put together in that short amount of time. So an Eagle is put on a pedestal as one of the, if not the hardest thing to win in the sport of bowling.
Definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you go down, like, if you look at people who've won over the years, winning one is impossible. It feels like it's impossible. You don't realize how much has to go right to come away with one. And then people like John Janowitz or John Gaines, or a guy that we know that he may not bowl as much anymore, but a really, really good friend of mine, Jeffrey Mersch, he has 2 of them, like, to win. And they both have 2 team all events, which is 5 guys bowling all 9 games, that total. Like, that is just the number of teams and quality teams that are out there. Winning it is so hard, and we've had a couple as a team. We've had a couple shots at it, a couple sniffs. And
you had a good run last year, right?
Yeah, we had a very good run. We ended up second by 17 pins. And when I say, like, the description I gave you before of wanting it and that feeling, I couldn't describe it to this day. Like, the feeling of getting up there. Apparently, I think going into the 8th or 9th, or I think the 9th, maybe end of the 9th and the 10th or whatever it was, we were mathematically out. But I don't think anybody other than maybe one person on the team knew that at the time. So we were literally bowling our, off to try to win this one thing. And it didn't matter about money to us. We didn't care what brackets did in that moment. We was just throwing a shot, turning around, and cheering with your best friends and trying to win that. It was an amazing feeling. So we have a second. I think we have a 4th, a 5th for the team. Matt Gasson, a really good friend of mine, and you guys know well, great bowler. He had a chance up until I think the last couple weeks. He almost won the singles with 803 or 802.
It's crazy to think that doesn't win.
Especially because the year before it didn't take 800 to win.
Exactly.
So Matt had a chance, and I personally, looking back, it would have been tougher, but I ended up 4th in singles all events. It was one of the years that McNeil won, and I was actually more than just coming in 4th. I was the only other person that did it was McNeil. We were the only 2 to shoot 700 all 3 sets.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. So that tournament just means a lot, and that competition, especially even more that it's a team. So I would definitely love to win one of those. And like I said, there's aspects of it that are money involved. We all know we can go out there and bowl well and make a couple thousand in brackets. I would give that up just to have that Eagle sitting on my shelf, because that Eagle logo that's next to your name is always there. They will always, until you're 85 years old, 100 years old, they'll announce your name every time in that squad room.
That squad room is a good time too.
Yeah.
When they're announcing everybody and stuff like that.
The year we bowled with Yoshi, it was funny. We got asked to bowl with Yoshi and Zook and a couple other guys, and I didn't know that Yoshi had won. But then we get out there, and I'm on the pair, and I see an Eagle next to him, and they announce Don Yoshihara, 2004, I think it was. I forget what he won, but it was like 04. I'm like, oh my God, he has an Eagle. I didn't know that. Like, unreal to think that we know someone that has won an Eagle and bowled well enough to beat thousands and thousands of other people.
Oh, absolutely. I think I may be wrong. I thought he won the team all events. I thought that's what. Okay. I think that is what it is. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, JJ has I think 3. Yosh has one. Jeffrey Marsh has two. Craig Auerbach has one. I think Andres has it. He was on that team with Craig when they won. John Huff has one. Like, there's so many bowlers around here that all have them, and it just, you can't ever take that away. It was actually interesting. I didn't post this. This was a couple years back. We were bowling, and there was a guy next to us, a family, like they were there for their, I think it was his like 40-something, whatever tournament. He had 3 eagles, and it didn't matter what year they were. His name had the eagle next to it, and he was announced every year. And I just thought that was cool. I think the guy was I talked to his grandson or son, and I think he was like 87 years old. He has 3 titles.
Wow.
Even to that point, like I think he won some back in the 60s and stuff like that, but it doesn't matter. Like, he still has that to his name. Like, it doesn't matter how many local tournaments you win. Like, it's the big things to me that matter.
Absolutely. Big things I think that's what we all want, is something on the national level. I mean, those are just so much different.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's so difficult. I mean, you guys know, you've been out there and you've bowled majors, you've bowled some of the swings. Like, the quality of competition is unbelievable.
It never ceases to amaze how good some people are. Even when, like, you're at the top of your game. And when I bowled Summer Tour, I felt like I was at the top of my game. And I had a pretty decent Summer Tour. It was nothing crazy. And then you're just watching those guys, and you're like, oh, I still can't do that. That's still unbelievable. You're getting beat by hundreds of pins, and you think you bowled good. That's when you know, like, okay, well, this is what you have to do to, what's the next step? What's the next level?
Absolutely. It's a whole different world.
Yeah, whole different world.
But the goal is to get there, and I mean, you guys. I know you guys have some regional titles and stuff, and you've had some really good competition. I know, Queso, you had to beat somebody pretty good to get yours, and and you have one. I believe you have one, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even at that level, it's hard, and then you want to do it on a bigger stage, and then it goes from the regionals, you want to do it on the national tour, you want to do it in a major, like, it just continues to go.
And winning at any level is hard, because there's always a guy, there's always another person that is good or better than you that you have to beat, that you have to go through.
Yep.
Like, always.
And you're bowling,
no matter what level.
You're bowling people that all want it as bad as you do, but they're all at different skill levels. So, like, we could all want to win, but if you're just like Chris said, there's those guys that are just that much better than you that also want it more than you do. So it's just, you always feel like you're kind of a little behind chasing it, but we're all going after the same thing.
Exactly.
So, Sean frozen? Oh no!
Oh snap! Had to happen eventually.
Froze. Yeah, figured.
All right.
We got to kick him out and put him back in.
Yeah, I think it's. Sorry about that.
We're good.
Yeah, sorry.
We're good.
So I missed what you were saying. Sorry about that, Queso.
Oh, you're good. I was just saying how, like, you're in a field whenever you're bowling, like, a national event, that everyone wants the same thing. Everyone wants to win as much as, if not more than you do. And then, like Chris was saying, you get beat by hundreds of pins because you're wanting it as bad as that guy, but you're not at that level that could just go get it. They might get it every once in a while.
Exactly. And 100 pins in 20 games is not really a lot of pins.
It's fair. It's a fair game.
Yeah, it's not really a lot of pins.
It's a double here and there. It's, you have a strike, a bad shot, double. That could easily be a 4-bagger.
Yeah, and that's kind of like how I tend to look at it when I'm trying to get better. It's like, how am I behind? Okay, am I behind a double a game? Am I behind a spare game? Strike a game? And every environment's different. Like on this pattern, I tend to be a spare game behind. On this pattern, I tend to be actually in by a couple. And so you kind of have to data mine for a while to see what you're good at and then fix those things.
Absolutely, and you have to learn to win. It's a weird thing to say. You really do have to learn how to win. You actually have to get, as much as you have to be mentally focused, you actually have to get your brain out of the way to allow you to win sometimes.
Absolutely. So getting your brain out of the way, Sean. So for everyone, the last podcast, 2 podcasts ago, but the one about the process and everything, I actually made a comment that
great
did.
episode.
Thank you. I don't know why sometimes I can't stay focused or be in the moment. And Sean has known me for a very long time. We've bowled against each other for a very, very long time, and he has an opinion. So I'm hearing this in real time as he's saying it to me right now. So
for the first time.
Yeah, And it kind of goes with something that I've had the opportunity, especially in college, we got to work with a great, unbelievable sports psychologist, Dr. Dean Heinz, or Hintz, I forget how to say his last name. And I've actually worked with a counselor too, and I've read a couple books that have helped. And it's what you put on yourself. It's what is easy to justify in your brain. So like you said, I believe you said in the podcast, like the regional and the big stuff, you just focus so much more. And I really think that compared to, the local, Langlo sweeper or Spring Hill sweeper, it's easy for you, if you don't do well that tournament, to discount it. Even though ultimately winning that compared to the regional or the national title isn't the same, but in your brain, it's so much easier to discredit any of those other tournaments. So I feel like if you don't bowl well, you both, especially you both, you're great bowlers. You definitely have built a name for yourself, and there's an expectation we have at the level we're at, the level you guys are at. And it's easy to discredit why you didn't win that house shot sweeper, X, Y, and Z reasons, whereas opposed to that regional title, that national title, the competition's better. It's something that means more to you. So it's all a mental part in that, if that makes sense. It's what you put value on.
Absolutely. So it's all mental, 100%.
Absolutely. And this is where we've all done it. It doesn't matter. We've bowled some local sweeper, and it's like, oh, this is, at the end of the day, you bowl bad or you don't strike, or it's just frustrating and it's easy to discredit, oh, it was on a house shot, or, this or that, whatever reason you want to choose with it. But ultimately, down to it, what is the difference between the two? It's what we put value on. That regional is so much more because we physically put value on it. And that's something that Dr. Dean, I had a chance, even in our group session, I was able to talk to him, and he kind of explained it to me. And we actually did like a competition. We put pressure on ourselves when we don't really have to. And it's hard to explain, but we would get up, all of us on the team would get up, and he would just walk around, he'd pick up a bowling ball. And the whole thing was like an elimination. Whoever had the lowest kept getting knocked out. This guy didn't have bowling shoes on. He doesn't really bowl. He would use other people's bowling balls. He was always in the top four. The reason why is he didn't put the pressure on himself. He didn't discredit it. He wanted to win. He wanted to prove that he could be there, and he just made it happen. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I totally get that. I totally get that. And actually, I was going to say, and to your point, that actually makes sense, because the last tournament I bowled, literally the last time I bowled, was March 14th. It was a small sweeper, nothing crazy, obviously. I think there was maybe 30 people there, and 15 minutes away from the house, local bowling center, and I just wanted to bowl. But with everything going on, I really knew that this was probably going to be the last time I was going to bowl for a really long time. I knew that. So that had kind of what you're saying about the pressure you put on yourself. I didn't really put pressure on myself, but I was like, I need to see where I'm at. I need to see how I'm coming from, the wrist injury that I had back in February, how I'm coming from that, how I feel with the new stuff. So I was like, I need to focus. And I bowled fantastic. Best I bowled in like 3 months. And it was all because of the how I viewed it. I didn't view it as I'm trying to make money, I'm trying to win. I viewed it as strictly how good am I? And that's the only thing that mattered. And it was a completely different mindset that I had. Your
emphasis was different. There's two parts to the Dr. Dean, and then actually something was John Gaines that told me in one of the times we were hanging out. It's what you put the emphasis on, what values to you. The thing that John Gaines said to me is, if you bowl for money, you're only going to go so far. Yes, you might make money, but if you bowl for something else, if you bowl for the hardware, you bowl for the titles, to be the best, you're always going to go farther. And then with that, it's about allowing yourself to win, focusing on what's important, even if it's a 15-person sweeper, the focus should be, regardless of what it is, to win. It doesn't matter who's there. It doesn't matter how many people are there. It doesn't matter what you're bowling for, how much you're bowling for, how far away it is. That's the hard part of it all. It's easy to discredit those smaller ones, but if you go into it with the same mindset, when you get to that bigger stage, ultimately the pressure shouldn't be as much either, because you've put that emphasis on those tournaments leading up to that. Mm-hmm. So one thing he actually said to me in private is, basically, what's the difference between the U.S. Open and any other regular stop? Why is there so much more pressure at the U.S. Open?
Because let's put it on a pedestal. Yeah,
we've built it up, and don't get me wrong, the U.S. Open is a tournament everybody wants to win, but we've taken that name Imagine if you bowled on the same pattern, the same format, everything, and it was called something else. Would the pressure be there? The pressure is something we've put on it because this means so much more to us. And I think that's what happens with you, Chris, when you bowl. And trust me, I've done it too. I'm not saying that I'm perfect in any way because I've done it. I still do it. We're all at some point going to keep doing it. We've put that on so much more of a pedestal than any of the other things we bowl. And I think if we can all get to that point where it doesn't matter what we're bowling, who we're bowling, where we're bowling, what it's for, if you put that thought process into it, it's going to turn into a long-term success. And then when you get to those bigger stages, there may not be nearly as much pressure because you've built it the same in your head the entire time.
Yeah. And actually, this actually brings up a really good point to the season that Belmo was having this year. I think this is kind of that. I think this is because people, I mean, obviously people that just watch on Sundays, oh, he's in a slump, blah, blah, blah. We totally discredit the fact that he made every single major show and just had the most outrageous season and dominated every single show and dominated his way to the shows. And I think this has something to do with it. Obviously, I don't know. I'm not talking for him, blah, 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 all that stuff. But when you have someone that's that successful, that has achieved everything there is to achieve, what's left besides the one thing that he had left was the U.S. Open. And that was the show that he pulled himself out of his television slump on. And I thought I think that like applies here because I feel like he maybe have been a little bored, complacent, whatever it was, going in from having the unbelievable season he had last year to realistically the same good season this year. But it took something he never had before to really spark and he actually looked like Belmo again on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. He bowled unbelievable, and you kind of got ahead on it. And I think he actually had, I don't know if it's slow bowling or whatever it was, he had an interview saying that his mindset wasn't in the right space. He's won everything there is to win. I mean, he will go down as probably one of, if not the greatest bowler of all time. All the majors he's won, the shows he's won, his winning percentage. And even him, his brain he wasn't in the right mindset, and hence he didn't win. And especially at that level, but somebody as good as him, if you're bowling unbelievable and you make the show time after time and you get to that, I mean, there's so many factors when it comes to TV, but if you're not in the right mindset, you've kind of shot yourself in the foot. And we've all done it. It's so easy to be negative. And that's the hard part to get up.
Yeah, Chris.
So never negative. Always positive.
Yeah. There's actually another, I can obviously talk for hours on this. There was something that I had to change. It is really easy to talk yourself down. I'm sure every bowler out there, I know you guys have probably had it, talk yourself down into, yes, you say so. Thinking, and if you tell yourself something enough times, at some point you'll believe it. And then it's so much easier at times to let your mind think, like, if I miss this, I don't have to worry about trying to double in the 10th. We've all said stuff like that in our head. And there was actually a book that I read. It was this fitness person that I follow. He's very knowledgeable and whatnot. He has a book. We got to stop?
Oh, no, we're good. It says we no longer have a time limit.
Oh, cool.
That's what mine said. That's what mine said.
Okay, well, we'll just go until we go. If it kicks us off, it kicks us off.
If not, we can always start again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So the first third of his book had nothing to do with what to work out, what to eat. It was all in the mind. And there's something that has stuck with me. And if you see my phone, every now and then you'll see a green dot, and it's because of this book and his thought process. There's such thing as a red light and a green light thought. Green light thoughts are the good ones. I'm good. I can do this. All the positive. And the red light are all the bad things. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I can't do that. He's always going to be better than me. This person's always going to be better than me. If you focus on the green light, and he said it in the book, literally putting green dots everywhere. So as soon as you see it, you have to think of a positive thought. And I actually did that going into nationals this year, and you can't see it on the video, but I literally looked at my phone because there was a green dot on the back of it every time, right before every shot. And it was, regardless of score, I was mentally in a better place than I ever have been for that tournament, as big as that tournament is. So it's important to get your mind right and stay positive, even though we'll joke, I suck, I'm going to slump. Ultimately, if you tell yourself that enough times, you'll believe it.
I think that's a good point is score, because this is if you throw the ball perfectly in football, it's going to go to this target. If you shoot that free throw perfectly, it's going in the basket. If there's every other sport. This is the only sport where you can do everything right, and then the score won't match. And I think that's why we get so negative. I'm sure every athlete on the planet gets negative. That is not what I'm saying. But it seems like, the guys that just go play football on the weekends really don't get negative. Whereas the guy that goes bowling just to practice will still possibly get negative. It just seems so much more ingrained in the sport because of that reason, is like no matter the score, you feel like you bowled great and you were okay with that. And it's hard for some people to be okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, especially because we're such a score-based, every sport is, but everything is judged on that score, regardless of, how good it is or compared to everything else. You said it perfectly. You can do everything on paper perfect and still not strike and still not score. Whereas then you can do kind of everything wrong and strike and score high. I guarantee us three included, anybody else, there's been tournaments where we threw it unbelievable and couldn't catch a break, whatever it might be, can't strike. And then there's times where you feel like you didn't throw the ball in the same spot for 8 games.
And you're leading.
Yeah, it's just amazing how that works.
Absolutely.
Which is where the mindset to me comes in. And that's one thing I've really tried to focus on the past year. Not just, all the physical stuff, but also the mental stuff. That your mind is going to tell you exactly what to do.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and actually the biggest, and this comes from Dr. Dean, when you tell yourself, don't throw it to the right, there's hook to the right, or there's a hold to the right. Well, the first thing you say is don't throw it to the right. You think you're being positive. Your brain remembers the word don't more than it remembers what not to do. So instead of saying like, don't throw it to the right, make sure if I miss left, or focus on something different other than saying don't, even though we think we're being positive. So that's another thing that, I've kind of tried to implement into my bowling. And I feel like I've had success the past year or two kind of doing all this stuff. And the mind is just so much more important than the physical.
Yeah, I've always done that. I've never told myself I don't need extra help being negative. So, so I've never really said don't. I kind of tell myself what's happening. Like, okay, there's hold in the middle, there's hook to the right, or there's a hang spot in this lane, blah, blah. I kind of just try to tell myself what the picture I'm seeing and just let that process, rather than saying don't do this or do this, or something like that. I've always felt that's helped me pretty well.
That's good. That's the way to go about it.
The brain is so powerful. It's unreal how you can be throwing it as well as you have in months and things like that, but then you see something you've never seen before and just one little thought, something small like don't throw it to the right or don't throw it to the left, and you do it twice in a row, and then all of a sudden all that progress you made the last couple of months just gets dethroned because you see something you don't like and then you can't take it away. You can't undo it, basically.
Absolutely. It's so much easier to be negative than it is positive.
Yeah,
so
it snowballs so much easier being negative.
Yeah, you can win everything for 6 months. You have 2 bad tournaments and you feel like you're terrible. That's the hardest part. That's the hardest part to get out. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that's me all day.
We've all done it, man. I've been there plenty of times.
But it's and it comes in waves, and you have to really know when you're on the wave. Like, I think that's been the best thing that I've realized personally for myself is when I know I'm on the upswing. Okay, I'm throwing it good. My timing feels good. My feel feels good. I'm making the right choices. I'm doing the right things. That when I feel that, I kind of need to let myself just go with the flow and be okay with bad things happening. And I tend to do that. It's when you get that tournament where you feel like you did it good, and then everything goes bad. And then you get another tournament and you make the wrong choice, and you're doing this for so long, you kind of forget the good habits that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in bowling, it's so habit based. Because there's so many little things. I mean, I remember one time I was bowling really good for a while, and I didn't realize it was something I was doing with my index finger. I was squeezing with my index finger. And I did it for like 3 months. I had an insanely good 3 months, regional caches, step ladders, blah, blah, blah. And it just faded away and I stopped doing it. And then I started doing something with my hand, and I tried to diagnose every little thing because, maybe my timing's wrong. We always go to the timing first,
Yeah.
maybe. And it takes you 2 months to realize that I just wasn't squeezing with my index finger. Like,
It's amazing.
what an insane sport that is, where that's the thing. And seriously, when I figured that out again, I that was another good tournament I had, and I just think
It's a trigger.
that's crazy. Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's a trigger.
Right.
And most of the time we're in a slump or we're thinking we're doing bad. It's literally something small. We didn't all of a sudden, our swing didn't completely change paths. It didn't go from out to in to all of a sudden pulling it behind your back. It's literally something small. And most of the time it's something small with mental. At least that's what I feel like with my game. When I start to feel like it's bad, it's, aside from if I don't get a chance to practice or anything like that, it's something small. It's one step is slightly too big or too slow, or it's not getting into the swing. It's literally something small that can be changed in an instant, but we make it and magnify it to this huge thing that we think it is.
Absolutely.
For those of you that don't know, Sean's never thrown a bad day in his life. Just like
I was thinking that as he was saying that. I just want you to know.
Don't listen to what they're saying. It's not true. I've thrown
Never seen
bad.
it. Never seen it. But
it's a matter of making those bad shots better. Like when we practice, we're not practicing to make our good shots good. Our good shots are already good. It's making the bad shots better.
well, when me and you
I
practice,
said that.
When me and you practice, Sean, when Queso practices, he's only trying to make the great ones even greater.
No. Talked about this in episode 5. I tried to make the bad shots a little bit better.
Oh yeah, you figured that out now. You figured that out, and it's been helping you a lot. You feel way better about your game now.
And it's a lot because of Sean, because he basically slapped me upside the head a couple months ago, and I've really been trying to take that and rework how my brain works. And like you said, when you're negative for so long, you really convince yourself that it's as bad as you're bad, you're terrible, whatever. You really convince yourself of that. It's not hard to but start thinking a little more positive, rework how you think, change your habits a little bit, and then it seems terrible at first, but then it gets a lot easier. Now we're in a position where we can't even bowl. So now, when we go back to bowling, it'll be just, I get to bowl again. So that'll be a positive mindset to be in.
I was having a conversation with somebody about that, about how the lack of bowling and actually really wanting to bowl. Like for me, I'm not like dying to bowl because I needed a break for my wrist and all that stuff. So I'm kind of in a weird spot. If I was totally healthy and 100%, I would be dying right now to bowl. But I have a reason not to. But it feels like when we go back, I think we're going to be a little more grateful for it. And I think a lot of people take bowling for granted. I mean, I sure have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I really think that's going to help a lot of people's mental games and just want to be out there and not care so much about the dollar and just really bowl. And I hope so, because that'd be nice to see.
I hope it does. I think it will. I just hope it happens longer than, let's just say, who knows what's going to happen. Let's say 6 months, we're pretty much back to normal. I hope it lasts longer than that. I hope people are still grateful and we're all still humble that we can do it, considering we've been, a month and a half now? I mean, you said March was like your last tournament that you bowled.
March 14th, last time I touched a bowling ball. Yeah.
So we're almost going 2 months where we haven't touched a bowling ball. So I hope that stays there, and I hope that kind of drives us, drives the bowling industry, because as of right now, it's looking pretty low.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. I definitely hope it bounces back.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm glad Queso's taking my advice. I've only tried to tell him that for about 4 years.
He's like 2 or 3 years behind something you tell him. That's normally how it works.
Man, I can count. I don't know how many times I've sat in a bowling center and talked to him about it, or while we're bowling, or after we're done with the tournament. There's a couple that come to mind, and it's always been the same message. I just try to change the way I say it.
Always.
Yeah, and that's one of the, again, for people that don't know Sean, we'll be bowling a tournament, Chris, me, or whoever, and we'll be talking, and if we're competing against him, and he'll be like, man, that ball doesn't look good. You need to change balls, or what do you do? He's one of the most helpful people that I've ever met in the sport. So, I mean, for him to come on and do this with us, obviously really appreciate it. He's just a really, really good person and a really good ambassador for the sport, even if, he may not be on TV winning titles like Belmo. I think he makes a really good impact on the people that do know him. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Oh, thank you very much, man. And I would love to be out there and doing that. I truly love the sport, and going through with what you said, I want you guys to get better. I mean, I'm a little older than most of the people I bowl. For a majority of the people I bowl, especially with all the youth coming up. So I've had a lot of time. I
feel old.
And I think I'm older than you.
Yeah, you're a couple years older than me.
Yeah, so I I have experience. It may not be, some of our friends that have been on tour and done that whole thing. And I may not have that experience and I may not be the most knowledgeable, but if I can do something to help, especially friends that I value and I enjoy and wanting to see get better, I want them to get better. It's also kind of a selfish thing. I want you guys to get better because if you guys are that much better, it makes me get better. So I want to beat you guys when you're at your best, no different than you
I have absolutely. I have lived by that because I actually get shit from people sometimes that why you help everybody like I love helping like everybody I can because if I'm getting beat, then I need to get better. If I'm helping people get better, then everyone gets better. And if you get left behind, that's on you. Yeah, if you get left behind, that's on you. Like you can always get better in this sport. There's always something. I've been doing this for 18 years now. Yeah, 18 years now, and there's so many things I can still get better at, down to basics to the super intense stuff. There's always more to learn.
Yeah, and that's the thing is moving the sport forward. And like I said, I love the competition. So if I could have and bowl against 50 guys like you and at the top of their game, and if I'm fortunate enough to come out with a win, like it just means that much more because you guys are at your best. Like beating somebody when they're mentally down and at their worst, like that doesn't really prove anything. And I'd rather you guys get better. I want to see you guys have success. I want to see you guys win, and not just you guys, any of my friends. And I may not be the most knowledgeable person. There's definitely people that are way more into the physical game, way more into the numbers and the bowling balls and stuff like that. But I have like an eye for the feel part of it. And because that's the way my game is. So that's the more stuff that I notice. I mean, I'm pretty good with ball choices and stuff like that, like, Queso said, but I'm definitely a feel person, and that's the stuff that I really think I'm probably pretty good at.
You picked right, what was it, a couple months ago when I was bowling really bad, probably January, I would probably say that tournament was, and I was like, Linglo, I was losing my mind like normal, like I was bowling terrible. And he called it. There was something off with the way my foot pacing was. And I knew it felt bad. I wasn't like oblivious. Like I was well aware how bad I was bowling. But yeah, he called it because that feel like, I think certain players just understand feel just a little better. Some people are really like mechanical about it and some people are very feel based about it. Just like, exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. My game, bowling and golf. I mean, I don't golf as much as I would like. Both sports, it's just extremely feel. Obviously, there's some technical aspects of where you want your hand to be, where you want your swing to be. But I'm very much a feel person, and I think that's something that's important for everybody. You have to have feel. You have to have a touch. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. Belmo has touch. EJ Tackett has touch. Like, even though they're extremely powerful, they definitely have some sort of feel and touch. Even Queso is mechanical as he wants to be. He still has to have some touch. So that's something that I like and I like to help people with. I'm not a coach per se. I mean, it's not something I've really delved into. But if I'm bowling with somebody, friend or anybody like that, or somebody asks me, I'm more than willing to give them my opinion or what I think is going on.
So fun question. How would you define touch?
Ooh, I like this.
Yeah.
Man, that's a hard thing. It's easy to say in a sentence, but it's hard to describe. Touch, to me, is having the ability to make changes on the fly. Like there's been times whether you're going good or bad, something's off and you're able to adjust it. You're able to change it in the midst of why it's going on. Your arm swing is in a different spot. Your hand's in a different spot, but you can change that and get that into a place you want to be. Or having the ability to notice something's different without being able to put an explanation on it. A ball that most people may not think is either good or at the right time being the ball to use, still having the feel to being able to make it work. I guess that's the way I would describe it. It's being able to make changes regardless of whether it's quote unquote the right thing to do or what should make sense at the time. There's plenty of times where things don't make sense, but people make it work.
Oh, that's solely the game almost all the time.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me that's almost like instinct, like touch and instinct kind of for you go hand in hand a little bit.
Yeah.
At least that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I feel like touch is different for every single person. That's why I asked. Because I feel like we all know when every bowler on the planet that's bowling, we know it touches. Like but it's the extra thing. It's like the special sauce, if you will, of the swing, of the approach of, you could be doing everything mechanically right, by the book, you're throwing it perfectly, your timing's blah blah blah, but it's just the 10 pin isn't falling. The 7 pin is falling. There's something that's just not right, and you can't put your hand on it. And that's when I think it's touch.
Yeah.
I would definitely say me and you kind of feel the same way about feel and touch and stuff like that. So what do you think about touch? Because he's way more mechanical than me and Shawn.
Oh yeah.
It kind of goes hand in hand with, like you said, like when everything's working really well. For me, touch is not something that happens every shot. I think even when you're bowling at the best and you watch the best games ever bowled on TV, touch isn't something that happens every shot. Touch is that extra 5% that someone imparts on a bowling ball. And to me, it's partly physical. It's the energy from your body that went to the bowling ball was as good as it could possibly be for that time. But it's also I feel a little bit more trust. I think people, when they do something different, I think the first shot or two is never going to have touch ever. I think it's getting over that change. Like if you, like for you, like going from sliding 40 to making that jump in front of the ball return. Your first shot's probably not going to have touch, but if it strikes, your next shot's going to have confidence, and then you're going to add that little bit extra, like, oh, this is going to strike. It's confidence. So for me, I think touch is confidence more than anything, personally.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I can definitely see that. I don't think it's necessarily, bowling is something that's not a sport there's always a definite. So, like going with what you said, for me, if I went from 40 to in front of ball return, for sure, I would have to, I'm working on that right now. It's not something I'm the best at, but it's one thing if I'm making a zone or two left into something that I'm really good at. Like, I think that's where it can be a little different at times. Like, I can make a 3-zone move and feel as confident knowing that that's going to happen, as opposed to at times it's the guessing thing. But the touch, I also think I agree with 100%. It's the way it's also transferred your body. Like you're taking all of your movement, your swing, your steps, your slide, everything, and you're releasing it into your fingertips into the bowling ball. So there definitely has to be some physical part of it that's really good, some technical part of it. It's a really weird thing to talk about feel and define it. It's just really, really, really weird. I think having a loose swing, having that it plays a big part. If you're too mechanical, I think it's a lot harder to have touch, as opposed to if your swing's a little more free as well.
No, I definitely agree with that, because for me, touch is more the cases that we'll be like mid-tournament, banging our head against a wall, and he'll be like, I think I do this and this, and then I kind of like, I have this like look that I give him, and he's like, you're just gonna throw it better, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna throw it better. Like, and that's, for me, that's what touch is. It's making sure everything is so good, and then you add that you have confidence and trust in yourself, and you put that all together, and then you know exactly the moment that ball's coming off your hand. The thumb is perfect. That thumb separation, your finger, it's just everything at the point of release you are in complete control of, and you trust the ball reaction that you're about to get. For me, that's what trust is.
That's for sure. And it can also be feel could be something that you're able to work yourself out of something bad. Like, we've all been determined for something, we didn't sleep right, we're in a long car ride, like our body just doesn't feel right, but we're able to manipulate it, whether it's doing with what you have that day, or being able to fix it. Wow, this doesn't feel right. My steps don't feel right. My swing feels a little out of place. It's not getting into the swing the right time. Like, having that ability and self-awareness to also change. It's the thing that I said earlier might go with instinct as well.
Yeah, it's that extra 5%. That's really all it is. It's extra 5%.
The engineering guy takes it to numbers.
Yeah.
See?
Well,
see?
Sure.
See? That's how it works. That's how it works. Like, and that's a different kind of bowlers. And I think there's two different kinds of bowlers. I've definitely said that before. Like, I definitely think there's, the feel guys and the guys that do it mechanically, need to practice. And I'm actually weirdly not feeling too scared about bowling again. I still feel like I have the picture in my head even after not bowling for 6 weeks. I put my hand on the ball. It doesn't feel great. I want to make some changes to the fit, of course.
You always do.
Of course. But other than that, like I feel like I still have to pitcher. I don't know how long it's going to last for. I mean, 6 weeks is easily the longest I've ever went without touching a bowling ball. I mean,
yeah.
easily.
I mean, I kind of take breaks here and there. I listened to your podcast on, I think, the process one where Chris specifically talked about taking some time off. Like just, I feel like I do kind of do the same thing. And to me, it goes into when bowling starts to feel like a job. That's when I'm like, man, I need to kind of step back a little bit, regardless of how I'm bowling. I've done it even when I'm bowling good. It's just I need to refresh my mind on where bowling is at in my life, and it's not as top priority, I should say, as it once was. My focus is a little bit different. I focus a little bit more on the bigger things, like the bigger tournaments. Ones with better competition per se, even if you have to travel. Like to me, that's where I would like to test my ability. And there's tournaments like the Bradley, and I mean, it was the Prop Cup for a while, and big tournaments like that where the competition is so strong and seeing where you can be at.
Yeah, 100%.
You've unfortunately had a knee injury, though. That's kind of sidelined you and made you rethink what you could do because you were not physically able to bowl for long periods of time, right?
Yeah, I have basically the cartilage behind my kneecap is very, very thin, and actually some places it's almost non-existent. And the places where it actually is a little bit thicker and a little more cushion, it's actually pitted. So if you think of basically instead of it being like this, like there's a pit somewhere in that. So it goes like that. And it causes severe knee pain. I mean, for a while there, it was hard to walk. It was, getting up and down, sitting up and down, it's hurt. And I've kind of taken some time off. It definitely helps. Knee braces help. There's really not much I can do. I have been trying to work out as much as possible and kind of strengthen the areas around the knee. But yeah, it definitely puts things a little bit more perspective. I had some back pain as well, like from a while ago when I was in a car accident. And it just puts things into perspective. And I think that's also why I may not bowl as much anymore, is I don't want to be in pain. Chris knows it. I don't know how much Queso knows about it. I don't think he's ever been in pain.
Thankfully, no.
No, it's a great thing to never be in pain. It definitely helps. When I was in college, I actually had some wrist pain, so I know exactly what Chris is going through. Got into a better fit. I haven't had any issue with that. It's just the other parts of my body that are, I used to be extremely a lot heavier than I am now. So I think that plays.
I wanted to talk about that. Yeah,
it's been a big part of my life, and I think it's really helped my bowling out because there's no way I would be able to bowl with 70 extra pounds, 80 extra pounds on me.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that a little bit because it's kind of bowling related, but it's kind of not. It's a little bit more about you personally. Like you said, you lost 70 pounds, and that journey and that commitment that it takes to do that. I just wanted to talk to you, like what was your reasoning? Obviously health reasons, and then kind of like what led you to do it and how you've been able to keep the weight off and what you do. I just wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Oh yeah, no problem. Actually, so I went to college. I studied chemistry and math, which, I'm not saying is the easiest thing on the planet. I'm not comparing it to any other major. It's not. I spent a lot of time studying, and excuses, it's easier when you're studying for 6 or 7 hours to order a pizza or something than eating healthy or cooking. So the freshman 15, 40, 50 came into play over the time I was in college, and it kind of continued. I would eat whatever I wanted after college, and I was bowling all right, so it didn't really matter. And there was actually, I do remember the point, there was literally one specific time, 3 things kind of came into play all at once, one day, and it just made me change the way I was. One was I was never feeling really good. It didn't matter. Obviously, I was eating like crap, so I felt bad every time I ate. I didn't feel like doing anything. My wife and I didn't want to go on a walk, or I didn't want to get up or anything like that. I just didn't really want to do anything, and that was bad. JJ is a big influence on me when it comes to bowling. The guy is older than I am, and he's in unbelievable shape. Other than an injury, a back injury that I believe was caused oiling lanes when I was in college. Other than that, yeah, it was. I forget what term it was. I just know it was that. Other than that, the guy's in great shape. He's always the top bowler. I would consider him one of the top in the state. hands down, maybe one of the top amateurs in the country, to be honest. And he's always in great shape. He puts fitness first. And it showed. It's the reason why he doesn't have injuries. It's the reason why he continues to bowl well. So those two are in my mind. And I was shopping for clothes one day. And when I started college, I think I was a 36 or technically a 37 waist. And I was putting on a pair of 42 waist and it wasn't fitting. And I was putting on a double XL shirt and it was getting tight. So at that point, I literally walked out of the dressing room. I put the clothes back. I looked at Jess. I was like, I got to do something different here. And I believe that was a Saturday. I signed up at a gym the next day and I started working out. And I just kind of watched what I ate. I wasn't on any program. I wasn't eating fast food. I actually cut out soda for probably 5 or 6 years. Literally didn't have any. I mean, towards the end, I probably had, if I had an alcoholic beverage, there'd be Sprite in it or something, but I didn't have soda. I watched what I ate and I worked out all the time. That was basically it. And I actually got really into boot camp. And that's kind of where I did that for a long time. And now because of my knees and my back and stuff like that, I've had to change my workout routine. And I'm still human. I eat M&Ms, I eat Reese's, stuff like that, but I'm just never going to allow myself or anything to go back to where I was. It's a detriment to my life.
How did it affect your bowling?
It made it a lot easier. I didn't have 70 pounds for the ball to go around. I mean, I felt like I looked back at pictures and it wasn't in my stomach. It wasn't, it was kind of spread all over, but I think my swing was better. The weird thing is I've lost all that weight and I still use, it's a little bit smaller, but I still use close to the same size thumb that I did before. I just got used to, as I was losing weight, I didn't change. I just kept adding more tape. So I still use that, but I feel like my swing is in a better spot. I don't have to manipulate the ball as much to get it. I'm 36 now, so what's that, 6 sizes, 36 to 44 almost, 8 sizes. That's a lot easier on my body to maintain. And especially with my knee problems now, I mean, you guys have seen me bowl. For those who haven't seen me bowl, I use my legs more than most. I'm really into the line with my legs, and it made it a lot easier sliding into the line, not being heavier.
I feel like I might be the only person that has the opposite opinion, because whenever I have to be the only person. Whenever I'm heavier, I fluctuate weight a ton. Whenever I'm heavier, I always have bowled better. Queso can attest, and it's weird, but it's true. And I hate it, but it's true. Whenever I lose weight, I think it has to do with my thumb hole, because I'm very finicky with my thumb hole. So I swell and de-swell. Exactly. I swell and de-swell a lot when I'm skinnier because my thumb just swells and de-swells. When I'm bigger, my thumb is a bigger size most of the time, and I have less issues. That's my theory, but I have no idea. But I think, yeah, absolutely.
If you think of your thumb, if your thumb is now this big, that big compared to that big, it changes the span. There's more or less area for you to be able to grip the ball. So your span would have to change, your pitches would have to change.
I change those all the time anyways. It's fine.
Well, I mean, you change. To be honest, it's kind of I think Mike Moore, and I love the kid to death. You guys talked to him last episode. I think for a while he did the same thing, man. He would one night he would have one grip, he'd throw it good. The next day he'd still switch. It didn't matter whether you threw it good or bad. He'd change it all the time. And I think that's the benefit of you guys being in the pro shop. It's so much easier to do that.
Detriment. Don't say benefit.
Yeah, it's a benefit from that perspective. The ability to do it, it takes away the I have to deal with this because I'm not going to pro shop and giving him 30 bowling balls. So it changes that to where, I'll just change a little bit and I'll just change them. And it makes it so easy that you do it all the time. I changed 20 bowling balls 3 times in 4 weeks. That was so annoying. I never wanted to do it again.
I will give you credit for this. You did have some, and still do have some wrist issues. So trying to be able to alleviate the pain, but still not feel like you can still bowl the way you're supposed to bowl, the way your hand is. I definitely understand that. I know what it's like to have a bad fit. I kind of had that. I didn't really have pain until later, but the night before nationals, when we bowled college nationals, so you bowl, once you get to nationals, you bowled 32 games of Baker for seeding purposes. And we had bowled, wherever we finished, I woke up the next morning and couldn't make a fist. And it scared the crap out of me. I literally couldn't make a fist. If I remember the time I had 3 braces along my arm. I had like one at my wrist, one here, as tight as it could to be able to like take the pain away. So I definitely understand the problem with wrist pain. So you changing, that's a little different. Mind you still probably change quite a bit more than most would.
Change too much, for sure.
Like I said, I know Mike for sure for a while. I mean, great friend of mine, great friend of ours. He changed almost every day, it seemed like. Every time we bowl, it's like, this doesn't feel the same. Oh, yeah, I did this, I did that. You know, he's changed quite a bit.
It gets kind of like addictive because you're looking for this perfect fit, which it does not exist. People can say I don't care. It doesn't exist. No one has the perfect fit. No one can tell you what the perfect fit is because it's different for every single person. And I think that's what makes it hard is, you have the book. You have, all right, this is what it should be. Case was big. He's always fit kind of that. And he doesn't have pain. He also doesn't have 500 rev rate. So
Correct.
it has a lot to do with it. But it's some things I've tried by the book and it feels terrible. And then I've done ridiculous things that make no sense and it feels great. And obviously your hand changes, so you gotta change every at least. Queso says a year. I say like 2 years if everything feels good. But I think it also
depends on what you're going through. Like, technically, I should have changed. I ended up changing my span and grip a little bit as I've lost weight. And mind you, I'm pretty set on where I'm at now. For a while, I was even more into it and all that stuff. But I changed my span a couple times. I would say it just depends on you. I would say anywhere between a year and a year or two, go to your pro shop, especially somebody that's good, that understands fit, that understands that. Check it just to see, even if it's just to see where it may go in the future. Everybody gets older. Your flexibility changes. Your body changes. Whether you've gained or lost weight changes. All that stuff has a big play on your fit. And I've gone through over the couple of years. I've gone through slight fit changes here and there. I've changed a little bit of pitches, a little bit span, and it definitely you have to do it. I mean, you can't be glued into the ball. There's no way to bowl that. You can't bowl like that.
Yeah, you can't be stuck in it, and you can't have to be holding on for dear life. It needs to be in between.
Yeah, absolutely.
There needs to be an in between.
You have to pry it off at some point. You don't need a crowbar, and it's essential to the game to get to the level you need to be. I mean, guys on tour, there's no way they have the death grip on it.
Some of them do. You just notice it really quick when you're bowling 50 games a week. That doesn't last too long. Yeah, that doesn't last too long.
That's true. It's a lot different now than it was in the 80s, 90s, 2000s when they bowled so many more games a week.
Yeah, that and then the rev rates. I think people really discount the rev rates because people are like, oh, they used to bowl 100 games a week back then. Yeah, great. None of them had a 500 rev rate.
Very few of them.
Very few.
And it doesn't matter what era you go to up until this point, the rev rates have never been higher.
Yeah, the rev rates are so high, and people really don't understand how hard that is. I do it a little differently. I do it all with my wrist, and that's kind of why I have the wrist issues. But there's people that do it with their shoulders. There's people that do it with their elbows. And anybody if they do have 500 and you get your power from somewhere, that part of your body hurts because it's just so much energy going to that part. And people really don't get that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you definitely do it more with your wrist than anything else. There's other people that do it a little more with their elbow and shoulder. I mean, shoulder is probably, in my opinion,
It's not a good place to get to, but they do.
Yeah, I think the elbow with the wrist is the kind of the key. But you're right, 500 rev rate, 550, other than two-handers, it takes a toll on you. It doesn't matter who you are.
And two-handers, they have issues with their hips and their lower backs unless they do it right. I think Belmo's the prime example there. Dude's hip was, Kyle's a great example. His hip was done. Kyle Troop, if anybody doesn't know, his hip was really bad when he was young, 23, 24, and he made changes, fixed his game, got unbelievably good. Kid is stupid good now, and he has no pain anymore, and it's awesome. It's awesome to see.
That kid, I mean, is unbelievable. I think the ability that he has gotten to over the years, I don't know him extremely well. Definitely, we see each other, we know each other, and have a drink and stuff like that, but the ability that kid and the tricks that he has created over the years, I mean, for a two-hander, he's got to be one of the best at playing straight. I mean, I know Belmo has gotten unbelievable at it, but Kyle can play 1, 2, 3.
Absolutely.
That's all he used to do. That's why.
Yeah. And
that's what was
the best at it.
The blue hammer that I believe he found it on a bowling rack.
Yeah.
He didn't. I may be wrong in saying this. I'm pretty sure he found the blue hammer he had used for a long time on the rack, and I don't think he changed. I don't even know if he changed the grips in it.
That'd be awesome.
I also think, going back to what you said, the rev rate. It's not just the rev rate. It's let's just say an 8-game block, whether it's local or whatever. Think of, other than Queso being left-handed and his transition and moves being 1 or 2. We're starting playing one part of the lane and can end up 5-6 zones different.
Absolutely.
What we have to do to be able to do that changes a lot throughout the day, whether it's our wrist, elbow, our ball speed, takes so much change as opposed to, maybe not so much in the reactive in the early 2000s, but if you go back to urethane and plastic, like, they're playing the same part of the lane over and over.
They were moving 3-4 boards. They were not making massive moves. And sometimes they move back right. I mean, when you're throwing rubber, plastic, and urethane, there's carry down, a lot of it.
Yeah.
So they're moving right. They're throwing it harder. But, there's so many things. No one moves right and throws it harder anymore. That is a very rare move.
It doesn't work.
And it doesn't work.
The only time you're really doing that is if you're bowling. If everybody's using old original urethane, that's actually was kind of the move. The urethane thing was especially like the world championships and stuff like that, where Team USA is bowling, all over the world. If I'm not mistaken, it was Team Malaysia. They showed up to one tournament and had a ton of original urethane. And at the time, that was kind of the move. You kind of, as it carried down, because it's original urethane, it's not what it is today. You moved right, you hit it harder, and if you had to, you threw it slow, but you threw it over the front, and your moves were right, not left, as opposed to the urethane nowadays.
Yeah, urethane nowadays tears up the fronts. You have to move left.
Yeah, it's the chemicals. It's even though it's urethane, it's different. I actually had a conversation with somebody in the industry when it first started coming out, when it was like the remake of the Blue Hammer and the Naturals, and was there something before the Natural? I thought there was, but it's not the Natural.
It was that Pure Hammer, that hammer ball from the Pure Hammer, when the vibes were out. Remember that?
Yeah, that's right. It's urethane, but it's obviously we have a core in it, but the chemicals to make original urethane either aren't available or they're different. They're not available, and the time it takes to use the original chemicals, and then also if they are available, they're extremely expensive. At the time, that's what I was told, talking to somebody in the industry that knew a lot of what was going on. So it is urethane, but it's our urethane. It's not the original chemicals. If you think of in the 70s and 80s, and I think into the early 90s when reactive was coming out, those chemicals are 30, 40 years old. That specific chemical and the process it uses would be a lot different now. And if it's even available, it has to be cost effective as well to the bowling manufacturers.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, you didn't have to turn around and make 5 million of them either. You had to make 100,000. So if it took a little bit longer, or the process took longer to do, you only had to make 100,000 of them. Now, bowling ball companies have to turn around and make, I don't know the number, but way more than they used to. So if you have a process that takes longer, it's not profitable to make it. If it costs more, it's just a bad business decision. So
yeah,
I can understand why they would have to do something different.
Yeah, that's super interesting, because I actually didn't know that or pay attention to the fact. I mean, I knew the new urethane's different, especially a couple of them, and I really didn't. And I really didn't know. No idea. I have no problems with any bowling balls ever.
We could get that conversation too.
I've skirted around the conversation because my opinion is sometimes.
Did you see the new USBC rule? It's going to take place in 2021.
No, I didn't.
The hardness rule?
Is it going to change?
The lowest hardness you're allowed to have now is going to be like 72 or 73, which would make all the urethane balls that ticked under that, as they get softer, technically illegal.
Mm.
How are they going to regulate that?
You can look up I briefly read over it. I think they're going to change the way urethane balls are made so they're harder, so they can't get below that threshold.
Huh. Wow.
I could be wrong. You can literally look it up. It's the new rule. It's going to come out in 2021. I got it sent to me in a link by a really good coach in the area. and I briefly read over it, and it's like, yeah, the new hardness is going to go to like 72 or 73, which would make it where if urethane gets softer, it won't get too soft. Whereas we saw with like, purple hammers and stuff like that, they hook an astronomical amount more than they should. That's going to actually change it where the threshold is higher. So that shouldn't happen nearly as much or at all. But they're not making purple hammers as far as I know right now, or if they even have plans to. So we may not have to worry about that. But it wasn't just purple hammers. There were some other ones that kind of were in that questionable zone when they were testing them at the U.S. Open.
That's interesting. I have two questions with that. I wonder, I go to a local tournament, how's anybody going to determine it? I mean, even if a pro shop has it, the scale to measure, you're doing it by hand instead of a machine. So I can press as hard as I want or as light as I want. So
exactly. They would either have to grandfather them in unconditionally or make them illegal, and no one can have them. Those are the only two options there. And if you grandfather them in, it wouldn't matter.
Well, I mean, I can send you the link real quick.
Yeah.
If you want to look at it, or if you want to screen share it. Yeah. My screen might go away for a second, but if you guys want to.
Yeah, if you could screen share it.
Okay.
And it'll bring me up to my next question with all this. So we obviously know the urethane balls are. It seems that the evidence is showing that these urethane balls, not just the purple hammer, but the other one, any of the other ones, they get softer. I think it was the most. I don't know if it's the U.S. Open or the one after that. They started doing. They started doing checks of every ball. So do we know what happens to reactive over a long period of time?
I'm sure that was released when they were doing that, but I don't know, or if it may not have been released. But I sent it to you on Messenger, and you can go ahead and read it or screen share it on your side. We can.
That's
sick.
I would be interesting to see that data too, especially because the bowling balls absorb oil. So if you think of it's absorbing this liquid that can change and expand with temperature into the bowling ball and actually be absorbed, what happens long term to those? We obviously have an idea that over a period of time, the ball dies. But if it's getting softer and these are reactive balls that react different than urethane, could that, I'm wondering what the softness is there or how it changes over time, especially bowling balls that get used a lot.
Yeah, I wonder why urethane gets softer and reactive doesn't when reactive is more volatile than urethane, but you're the chemistry guy, so I don't know.
It's got to be a chemical thing. I haven't had the opportunity I can't just call Hammer and what's the process or what chemicals you're using. They're not going to release that. So I would assume it'd have to be a chemical process that oil can actually react, even though you're not seeing a reaction that most people would, a reaction. It could be a reaction with whatever the chemicals are, or something along those lines. That is what I would assume.
You should send this to Shawn too to see it. There's really nothing to screen share, if I'm being honest. Like it's hard to understand just me looking at it. But yeah, I'd send it to Shawn too. He would definitely understand this way more than I would.
I'll see what I can do.
Let's see if you like it.
All right, give me one sec.
I'm sending it on Facebook Messenger, so you can.
All right, just give me 1 second. I might just pull it up on my phone to be easier.
Perfect. I don't know if you wanted to just screen share it so we can read it off to people, or I don't know if you want to do that or not.
It's pretty in depth. I mean, I would just say people go look it up if you're interested in it.
Yeah, it's on USBC's website. That's where it came from. So
that's a ton of hardness. They have the whole report, Shawn, on there.
Cool. That's something I'd be interested in so I have an opinion on this. I know you guys did a urethane thing, and I have my opinion on it. I'd be interested to see what this says and changing my opinion or solidifying my opinion thereof.
Do you think that is? I talked to Matt about this a little bit. So is your opinion kind of like Matt's?
What's Matt's?
That it doesn't really matter. And I mean, he made great points, and I actually kind of agreed with him a little bit. That it doesn't necessarily matter the softness because there's a certain level of softness that bowling balls become unusable anyways.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually, you can go back to the days of, I believe, the Shirty Pros and stuff like that, where they actually used to dip them in acetone to try to keep us off this ball.
Don McHugh?
There's guys that ruin the balls because they sat in there too long or whatnot. And at some point, it becomes counterintuitive. I am looking at it here now. Let's see. I'm just going to have to answer
There's a lot. Yeah, it's a long thing. It's their whole hardness report, which I'm gonna look through it when we're done here because I'm interested.
Yeah.
I didn't know they
Yeah,
had
me
that there.
too.
That's super cool.
I like
You
that
want
there's data.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
because we needed data. We needed data because there was like all right, so pretty much the problem is the problem is competitive bowlers noticed an issue with a certain ball, the purple hammer. Other balls, issues here, issues there, but for the most part, a lot of issues happened with the purple hammer, and a lot of things. People were just doing things with this ball that just didn't seem realistic. It doesn't roll anything like urethane. Number one, it's not a urethane ball. I would never consider it a urethane ball.
There's definitely aspects to me that show urethane.
Yeah, but it's a completely different type of motion, I would say, for the most part. So it's like urethane on steroids, if you so to speak. So the competitive bowlers, not all, some. I'll admit I was definitely part of that group. That ball bothered me, got under my skin, for sure.
Yeah.
Because when you think something's illegal, you want it looked at. Now that they're looking at it, I have no problem if it's not illegal. But obviously, some things came back where the ball showed to be illegal, and they said it was happening across the board to a little more bowling balls than we expected, which I guess kind of makes sense. I've never seen another ball do what the purple hammer does, though.
True, but at the same time, I wouldn't expect a pitch black to roll the same. It's a different company. It's a different set of circumstances. They're developing balls in a different part of the country with different chemicals, different processes, different places where they buy chemicals, which may not seem like a big deal, but I can tell you from being in the chemistry field a long time and doing what I do and research when I was in college, simply where you're buying the chemicals from can very much be a difference. And those are factors you have to think of. And hammer was being made in Hopkinsville, and now they're going to be made in the Brunswick plant. So it'll be interesting to see if they do make them. They bought the intellectual property, so they know the process and the steps that they use, but how is it going to be different under those circumstances?
Absolutely. Everything's going to change.
Yeah, I mean, and in theory, it technically shouldn't. I mean, if you just go on paper,
correct.
It's going to. And I think that there's enough people in the industry that work for now the Brunswick Corporation that they should be able to make them in a way that you wouldn't really notice much of a difference. I think super competitive bowlers like ourselves might notice a difference. General, ordinary, league bowlers or people that may not, take this sport as seriously as we do and are into it as much as we do, they may not notice much of a difference.
Hook is hook.
Yeah,
hook is hook, and that's the thing. Most people hook is hook. When you get up to a certain point, it's how is the ball hooking, and that's when you start noticing the difference. Like where is it picking up, where does it go forward, how much energy does it use at the end, and all those things that come into the equation for the ball motion.
I would continue looking at this, but this is an 18-page report.
Yeah, it's insane.
I'm going to look at it for sure when we're done, and I'll message you guys. We can continue more about it. But continue on whether we should or not. My opinion on it is this, and this is I'm somebody that has the ability to throw them, and I've actually had. I have now one of the ones that's quote unquote in question. I haven't obviously had it tested. I haven't molded any of the majors to where I need to, and I had one that was made after the time frame. And I'm somebody that can use it, and I really don't use it that much. With my speed, rev rate, my roll especially, there's a lot of times it's hard for me to use it. I can't really use it on short unless the times I use it on short, it's effective because I use it after the black hammer. With my rev rate, my touch, I use the black hammer a lot more. And then when it comes to where I would need a stronger urethane, I actually have gotten into the Black Widow urethane more than the purple. Mind you, the purple does a lot of stuff.
Same.
But if the bowling ball is released and they've tested it and it's passed, it's hard to say it's not the bowler's fault if they use it a lot. And
it's nothing to do with the bowlers. Nothing to do with the bowlers.
And I think that's where obviously there's one person in question. That's always the forefront of this debate, especially with this purple ball. And if he uses it and it was in spec and available to be used as a product, and he continues to use it and has success, it's not his fault if it becomes softer over time.
Those arguments against him are stupid.
Those are the arguments I can't stand.
Stupid. Yeah, absolutely. Those are stupid.
I don't care if it makes if it did or does not, or eventually makes his career. He was using a ball that was available to him at the time that quote, whether it should be illegal or not now. At the time of release, it shouldn't be. And I mean, the big comparison now becomes between the mode of Jackal, one of the Jackals when it was released.
Yep.
But there's
Jackal,
also
Jackal Carnage.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just knew it was a Jackal. But there's some behind the stuff that most people wouldn't think about in manufacturing that potentially could have changed it over time. When they are developing cores and pouring them, you're pouring it into a plastic mold. Over time, you're pouring a hot chemical into a plastic mold. That mold is going to slightly change over time. And if that mold changes enough that, it changes the dynamics of the core, it wasn't Moda's fault. It wasn't, it's hard to justify changing that mold out every single time when you have to make 10,000, 100,000 bowling balls.
Yeah, the more I've learned about making bowling balls, just a couple people I know in the industry and talking to them, like, I didn't realize how not even close to an exact science this is. I mean, it is the furthest thing from an exact science. It's like borderline just guessing. Like, all right, if we do this, this, and this, it should come out here. If we do this and this, it should come out here. Like, when it comes to the core and the cover combinations with the filler that they have to use to try to make weights, and making weights is way harder than I thought it was. Yeah. I was shocked when I learned, like, that's why it's so hard to make 6, 15. It's difficult to make different weights because it changes everything. It changes the whole. And I didn't know all that. So me learning that actually changed a lot of my opinions about how bowling balls were like just in general.
Well, and the time of day, the time of year, the humidity in the air, that has a huge effect in chemical processes. I mean, without getting too nerdy, I mean, temperature alone can make a huge difference with the way these chemicals react. Temperature can cause a reaction to speed up, depending on the reaction, astronomically. I mean, the humidity in the air can be a factor. I mean, you're dealing with creating something from, bulk chemicals. It's not always going to be the same. We always know that throughout our time of bowling that there's been batches of balls, and I'm not even talking urethane, batches of balls that you could just know, wow, that is not the same. That is not the same as what it was. And especially if you do it over a longer period of time, other factors change in the industry. The oils change, the surfaces change, the amount of oil we use is different. So, I mean, you can go back to high roads as long as they've been made. You can definitely tell a difference between the original ones and the first year to now. I mean, they still hook, they still strike, but you definitely tell that there's a big difference to what they were.
Yeah, 2010 high roads to 2017 high roads. I mean, they were different bowling balls for me.
Yeah,
I had like 3 of them back then, and then I never ended up throwing them.
Yeah, and it's all of those factors have to come into play. So no matter how much there's factors that you can't calculate. I can't calculate what this is going to do at 72 degrees as opposed to 76 degrees going to 78 degrees. Like, all that stuff makes a huge difference, which is why it's so hard to produce balls.
And all that can change from the morning to the middle of the day, depending on what state you're in.
That's exactly what I was going to say. When I found out that they were really saying that heat really matters for balls, and when they were testing them out there was way less illegal. And then we're in the South region, so I'm like, oh, is that the reason why I see a bigger problem with this? Because I'm seeing these balls that are subject to heat, 10 months out of the year, opposed to some balls that are subject to heat 5 months out of the year, 6 months out of the year. That changes everything.
Like the cars and garages, Exactly.
Absolutely.
Florida gets 120 in a car, like in a trunk. Is that, if it never gets to there, in New York, is our ball going to hook 5 boards more because it's subjected to that heat way longer?
I mean, our lanes hook more because of that, and we all know that. Like, the South hooks more because they're hot. Like,
humidity plays a big part too. You have oil. Be a nerd here. Oil and water are 2 completely different things. The whole thing, oil and water doesn't mix. When you introduce oil to water or water to oil, you'll notice it all collects together. What is happening is it's trying to, depending on what you're adding it into, is trying to create the least amount of surface area. So when it's super humid, it's going to cause that oil to change. And when it's super hot, it's going to make a difference. When it's hot, the oil wants to expand, and yet you're adding humidity on top of it, which is now going to make that oil expand and go into smaller surface area. Basically, a big droplet. If you think of like a droplet of water, something as simple as a Rubik's Cube, the surface area of a Rubik's Cube, if you cut it in half, gets larger and larger and larger. So when you add heat and humidity to it, it makes a big difference to the oil, which is why it probably dissipates faster. The front starts to hook a little bit more because there's a big pile, or should be a big pile in the front, and then heat and humidity are going to cause it to flatten out.
People say that about TV shows for PBA, that the lanes are totally different because of the lights.
Absolutely. absolutely. And the number of people around that lane. There's not, during a tournament, you have everybody in the back and the bowlers are in there. Now you have 40, 50, 60 people lined all around that lane.
Yeah.
If you guys remember the Six Flags bowling back in the day where they were on the lanes and the lanes were clocking in at like 100 plus, like they hooked so much that the bowling balls actually didn't hook a whole lot down lane. If you watch the guys that had a lot of axis rotation, they were into like fifth arrow, but the guys that rolled it, their balls were just dead hooking and rolling out because there was so much friction on the lane from the heat over the course of the day, whatever it was, that it was bad. And then the approaches got super tacky because they were just so hot. It was just probably awful to bowl. I couldn't imagine bowling at 115 degrees. Like that just sounds horrifying.
That does. And having to blow the sunglasses all of a sudden. I mean, other than Pete Weber.
Oh, yeah, that would mess with me. I don't know if I'd be able to do it.
I mean, I think there were shows of Pete Weber, Rudy Kazanakis. I think Duke made some of those shows. It was a way different. I can only imagine what it was like. They're qualifying to that.
Yeah. You go from qualifying indoors to bowling in the same pattern you bowled on all week in a constructed 4-lane center.
Yep.
In an environment you've never bowled in before. Like that's unreal.
That's completely different. I can only imagine what that would be like.
So I'm good. I don't have any more questions.
That was a long one. So yeah. Which we knew that was going to be a long one.
Yeah. If you guys have any more questions, I'd be happy to give my opinion on.
I mean, I'm good. I don't know if Chris has got anything. I mean,
no, yeah, that was great. That was great. That was an easy hour and a half. We've never done an hour and a half before, so that was.
Oh wow! I didn't realize how long we were going for.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thanks for letting me be a part of this, guys. I really do appreciate it.
Okay, so do your thing, man. Go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Shawn, thank you as always. We appreciate it. We're definitely going to try to get Mike and you back in here definitely later down the road when we have some more stuff coming up. So we do appreciate it. Everyone out there for subscribing to Real Life Bowling. Again, thank you guys. Without you, we wouldn't be here where we're at. So make sure that you like the video, comment on it if you have any questions for Shawn or ourselves or anything you'd like to see in future videos.
Yeah, anything you'd like to see in the future. One second, sorry. Anything you'd like to see in the future. We're planning a lot of stuff when we could actually get back on the lanes. We want to do a lot of Pro Shop stuff. So anyone that has any questions about Pro Shop stuff, give us some questions about that, comments about that, so we can actually maybe make some Pro Shop based content that you'd like to see, fitting, drilling balls, stuff like that. I actually want to do ball drilling videos and layout videos, stuff like that. I think that'd be pretty cool. Yeah. I don't see that anywhere else.
We didn't get into the Pro Shop stuff.
Yeah. So when we get back, yeah. Continue.
Yeah, Chris and I talk about this all the time. We're trying to be different. We're not just trying to be another podcast, we're not trying to be like Brad and Cal. We're trying to be like Chris and Anthony and whoever else. So we're going to take what we know how to do and we're going to try to put a spin on it. So like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit notification bell so you guys know when we post another one of these. And as always, thank you. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good one.
Thanks,